if any other elephant has ever reached a trunk into a car that I've been sitting in. Nora, I've had one or two bulls touch the car very briefly, but nothing reaching into the car. I try and avoid getting into a situation where that can be possible. Sometimes it's difficult to avoid, but ideally we try and avoid that sort of thing. So the only reason I would ever let an elephant get that close, unless I was stuck and it happened to be charging me, which I hope it wouldn't happen. The only reason I'd let an elephant get that close was if it decided that it wanted to come that close to us. So if we were watching, say, a breeding herd and a young bull like this detached himself and came over to investigate in a non-aggressive fashion, then I would stop and wait and let them come past. But as soon as an elephant starts to behave in a manner that indicates that they're threatened, the best thing is to just extract slightly. And so it's not, well, it is quite common for elephants to come very close to us here because they trust the cars. For them to reach into the actual vehicle is something unusual. Just do a little run through here. I'm afraid the view is not excellent from where we are. Very interesting question as we're looking at young bulls here, two young bulls, neither of whom are only close to full size yet. And John, you'd like to know at what age they achieve full size. John, they never achieve full size. An elephant grows until the day it dies, which is quite interesting. Obviously they slow down growing quite a lot, but they do keep growing until they die. And very old elephants obviously don't grow very much, and they probably lose quite a lot of mass because their muscles will perhaps start to atrophy. But a big bull probably reaches his top mass at about 45 to 50 years. Nice question, John. Thank you for that. I often forget that rather fascinating fact of elephant life. Now, you can see these elephants eating, you can hear them eating, and if you spend any time with elephants, you notice that they just do eating, basically. That's what they do all the time, to try and keep their bodies moving, to try and maintain the energy balance required for such a vast mass. And Rachel, you'd like to know how much they eat in pounds. Rachel, it does depend on the elephant, of course. A big bull will probably eat up to 250 kilograms of food a day, so that's obviously an enormous amount of food. They've done tests on, I think the major tests were done on a 10-year-old cow a while back, and she, I think, ate about 150 kilograms of food a day and produced in excess of 75 kilograms of dung a day, so that was quite something. So their dung is obviously a huge thing, but I think a big bull, 6-ton bull, would eat about 250 kilos, so if you multiply that by 2.2, we get to about 600 pounds of food a day for an adult bull elephant. So that is a huge, huge amount of food for a big animal. And if you can imagine the effect that they have on the ecology of an area, all of them knocking about, eating that amount of food. And they eat all sorts of things, Rachel. You know, they don't only eat green material. So you've asked if it's all green. Definitely not. And in the summertime, at least in the wintertime, there's very little green for them to eat. And they spend a long time digging up roots, like we saw that one doing just now. Digging up the roots and breaking bark and eating dry seed pods on the ground. And then when there are fruits, they will eat a lot of fruit. And if there is green vegetation, obviously they will select for that. That elephant now is eating something called a jackalberry tree, and he's eating the new flushed leaves. There's just a lovely, lovely atmosphere around here of complete peace as they feed along this drainage line. And they're all over the place, you know. You can't get this impression from the camera, but they're all over. There's some about 200 meters away. I just saw a baby running after its mother through some thick bush away to the side. But everything is very calm and collected, and there seems to be no stress around here, and you do generally get a feeling from a herd of elephants as to the amount of stress that there might be or whether they're relaxed. Now I think this bunch of elephants is in a state of very joyful repose as they eat their breakfast, which will in turn run concurrently into lunch and tea and then supper without so much as a break.
That's how it should be.
Well, Wiam, for you, yes, I know. Wiam, of course, for those of you who don't know, is an extremely hungry man all the time. I think he's probably got a tapeworm. It's a wonderful day. The birds are calling, singing away. Elephants are feeding in peace. The woodpeckers are pecking at the trees. And Wiam is going to eat his banana shortly.
Looking at it.
You're looking at it. Alright, I think we're going to probably move away from them because we can't really see them anymore, and they've disappeared down into this very fastly greening drainage line. So let's move gently along. We're quite close to Buffel's Hook waterhole, so we'll go and see what's happening there. And I'd also like to try and show you, I know Brent showed you one the other day, but I'll try and show you again one of these flowers, the Xerophyta retinervis flowers, beautiful lily-like flower that comes out of these baboons' tails that the elephant was so readily devouring. Right, Wumpy, on we go. Monkey orange trees like this one to our left hand side it does tend to scrape and make a nasty noise. You can see how it is designed. And old Eugene, who lives in the tin shack below the Gari repeater, had a bit of an issue last week or 2 weeks ago. He was cut by one of these trees as he was helping Jamie get out of, or Brent or somebody getting out. They were stuck and he was helping them get out, and he was cut by one of these trees, which the seeds are supposed to contain strychnine and the fruit, but he had a very nasty effect or reaction on his arm, and it actually started to rot some of the flesh away on his arm. And so I think they probably do carry a little bit of strychnine in some of the spines as a defense. Clearly that elephant felt no ill effects as a result of the strychnine. Eugene's arm certainly did. Okay, we're out. I will try and find you a beautiful Xerophyta retinervis flower. Excuse me. Frog in a throat. Oh, giant tree crab. There we go. Right, there is the flower, everybody. Beautiful, beautiful flower. I will now point at it with my pointing stick. Lovely purple lily-like flower, which I'm definitely not going to pick, and I just want to check if it smells of anything. I'm going to say no, and I'll tell you why. Try not spike myself to death as I go down to smell. It does smell. Oh, that's lovely. It's very subtle lily-like smell. That is really actually quite spectacular. It's got a very sweet sort of sweet subtle smell. It's not very very overt, but the reason I said that I didn't think it would smell was because of the fact that it's blue, and that blue color generally attracts insects through ultraviolet, and so they don't necessarily have the smell that would attract birds to them for the purposes of pollination. Now, Siberia Zumi, you want to know what it tastes like. Siberia Zumi, I am not convinced that the Xerophyta retinervis is necessarily fit for human consumption, and so, well, at the risk of creating something of a spectacle of myself, if I drop dead, it's been real. Taste of nothing on earth. Do you want to try some, Liam?
No, but do you require medical assistance?
I do not require medical assistance just yet, thank you.
How about now?
I will be fine. Right, while I see if the effects of this Xerophyta retinervis on me are hallucinogenic or perhaps affect my bowels, we're going to head across to Jamie and see what she's managed to find, and I'm going to head to Buffelshoek, and I will see you just a little bit later.
Welcome back, and now we have a mystery on our hands. Now, I'm pretty sure that I've picked up on Shadow's tracks. It's entirely supposition, and I'm just going off the fact that she's come straight out of Simbambili, where she was last seen, and into Voya's in the direction of where Madiba's last tracks were. Now, I haven't seen any tracks of his. I went all the way up Vuyatilla main access towards Gowrie Gate, picked up on her tracks there, and I've come back down Triple M just to check and see if she hasn't crossed with him somewhere here. But these are fresh tracks, the ones that we've got, and they come straight from here, which is Simbambili, across into Vuyatilla. Now, I tracked her further along where the tracks met main access, and she went straight north. There's a lot of alarm calls happening in that area, but all sound like they might be north of our boundary. And I've just done a U-turn now on Triple M, and I'm going to head back in that direction, because although it is guesswork, I'm fairly certain that this is Shadow. Could of course be Karula, or one of the other leopards that lives around here, but it's just my suspicion. Gut instinct tells me it's Shadow. Now, these are very fresh, because this is Triple M, which is one of the main access routes on the reserve. And the tracks I had on Vuyatilla main access were also very fresh. So those, I could tell you now, go through the block in that sort of direction. They pop out just over there on Vuyatilla main access, and they go across, and they continue straight north into a drainage line. Now, of course it is supposition, but my guess would be she's killed something over there, and she's going to go and fetch Madiba. Or she's just going to go and check up on him. She has been away for a few days. Which means we've got to act fairly quickly, but luckily, if that is the case, it means that they're going to be on the move. Which in turn means that we're going to get alarm calls in response to their presence. There was a squirrel shouting earlier, but I think he was just shouting for the sake of shouting, or maybe at a snake, quite possibly. Couldn't see what he was alarm calling at. But this is where it becomes really fun. It's a test of guesswork and reading the signs and the clues and trying to figure out from there how it's all going to fit together as the pieces of the puzzle. Let me just think this through. She's crossed here, she's going into a drainage line. Where is young Madiba hiding, and why have they come so far north? It's perfect though, because the Sabi Sands management are living at Gowrie Gate, or the guys that will have to administer the anti-rabies dart. So if we do find them, they're nice and close. I think the best way for us to unravel this mystery is for me to hop out and carry on walking in that drainage line and see if we can pick up on any alarm calls or anything that might give away the position of this mystery leopard who I believe to be Shadow. In the meantime, Scott is also out and about on foot, and I believe that he would like to catch up with you and update you as to what he's been doing. So let's head across to him and I will catch up with you a little bit later.
What a wonderful angle this is, everyone. I'm sure one that a lot of you would have never seen before. And we are here at the Buffalo's Hook waterhole. And this is the resident hippo, possibly Bob, but we can't be certain if it is the same hippo that did spend some time here a few weeks and months ago. Now, we've come here, we're going to have to be very cautious of him because we don't want to disturb him too much. But the reason why we've come down to the water's edge is because we are following the tracks of lion. In all likelihood, the remaining members of the Inkuhuma pride. I'm sure James or Jamie would have updated you that the one lioness is still hanging around the 5 Birminghams, but it looks like Junior and at least one other lioness, we're guessing it's the 2 of them, came from the east, or sorry, from the west in this direction towards us. And there's some really great signs of where the lion actually took a drink. And if you come and take a closer look here, this is where I think Junior came and had a drink. And you can actually see this massive paw mark over here where he would have had to get as close as he could to this water to drink up. And isn't it wonderful to see these tracks? We always like to show you tracks, but it can be difficult from the vehicle. The lioness came this way, and she's decided to have a drink in a slightly different area, and you can see where her tracks, my shadow's getting in the way, we do just need to make sure the hippo doesn't get too worked up. They can be very dangerous, but we do have the vehicle parked right behind us, so don't worry. But there is also another track of a lioness over here having a drink. We've also got a glimpse of James in the other vehicle who's parked behind us, and he's come into this area to hopefully help us find exactly where these lions have gone to. Now, while we are on foot, we do need to be careful, and I want to, rather than distressing this hippo, get back as soon as we can to the vehicle and then back onto the tracks. We're not sure exactly where the lion have headed to from here, so we're going to have to fine comb the area, do a perimeter search around the dam, and hopefully we'll be able to understand exactly where they are. So the plan is to continue searching, and hopefully we will find the rest of the pride shortly. We are going to send you back to somebody. I've got no comms with FC. I've lost my communication with them, so I'm not sure exactly who you're going to go back to. Possibly James on the other side of the dam, or Jamie, who's also hot on the trail of some leopard tracks. So exciting prospects. There's still some time left to find more animals, and I'm feeling confident. We'll see you later.
Hello everybody, welcome back to marvellous Wendy here. Well, she's semi-marvellous I suppose, but there in the distance you can see the picture of the bush walk, and I think it's quite a nice thing for you to be able to see exactly how they do it. You can see Jeandre on the right hand side there is trussed up with a fairly heavy backpack, Obviously in the foreground is the site of Bob, the bachelor of Buffelshoek, and Scott Dyson, of course, is going to help Jean-Andre now. Oh, there we go, he's now presenting to you in the manner of a silent movie. On the back of the vehicle we have a professor from the University of Cape Town watching on in bemused fascination, I would say, is the expression on his face at the moment. He is writing an article on us. Jean-Andre is not only going to be filming, he's also apparently going to be tracking with that great big backpack on his back. So that's how they do it. It's really quite I think it's a magnificent way of experiencing the live safari. So that's a kind of almost behind the scenes-ish, in front of the scenes-ish shot of what goes on with the bushwalk. This hippopotamus, if it's the same one, and I think it probably is, has been coming to and fro from this dam for the last few months. And I think he's a young bull, as are all of these independent chaps that you see on their own, young bulls who are not quite big enough yet to take over territories. And this is pretty good territory now, though, with the rains coming and the special grazing land that is starting to sprout all around a waterhole like this. This becomes much more prime territory, and so he may not be alone for too long. We have seen him at one stage. He seemed to have found a friend. We don't know if it was a female friend or a male friend, but he or she then disappeared after a little while, and I think because the grazing around here was pretty poor. But now after the rains we can definitely see some sprouting of grass. There we go, just coming into picture now, top of your picture.
Alright.
An interesting question from Diana in northwest England about hippo birth, and of course this hippopotamus is unlikely to give birth, given that he's a male. I mean, we never can really tell, of course, but one of the things that we can tell in biology with a definite certainty is that male mammals don't give birth. Well, I don't think they do. And Diana, you want to know if they give birth in the wet season or the dry season, and if in the dry season, how do they do it? How do they protect the babies? They're not particularly seasonal breeders, Diana. They will have a peak, though, during the time when conditions are the most favorable, and that will be when the rains have come, when there's lots of grass for them to eat, and when there's space for in the water. They don't want to be giving birth in water that is filled with hippos. And I mean, when it gets really dry in some of the rivers, the pods of hippos just kind of fill every available space of water. So they will generally give birth in the wet season, and they give birth in the water, and the babies then come and breathe out, and they can walk pretty much immediately, and they do suckle quite a lot under the water and then come and stand on their mother's backs, and that's generally how they do it. So normally, Diana, it will be during the wet season. Yeah. You can just hear behind us the lovely sound. We've obviously stopped now. There. The white-bellied sunbird. I don't think we can see him. Oh, there he is. He's just on the end. If you go the other way, you turn the other way to the back there. Sorry. There he is. Beautiful white-bellied male sunbird, now flying away, gone away. Sorry about that. He was sitting exactly where Vian's pointing the camera, and they are fascinated by all the little flowers that are starting to come out. That's why they're singing with such exuberance and joy at the nectar that they are now retrieving from all the flowers, especially in some of the conbetum trees around the dam. Right, onward, see what other little spring wonders the bush has to offer us. It's a loud one. And a nice question about primates from Christy Berry. Now, Christy, we don't know that we've heard from you before, so if this is your first time, thank you for taking the time out to ask us a question. We do appreciate it greatly. And you want to know about monkeys and why we don't seem to see a great deal of them. Christy, they are around, and I suspect that we will see more and more of them as the fruit in the trees starts to come. But it's not... Djuma doesn't have necessarily a poor population of monkeys. We do see them. They come to the camp very often, and certainly as the fruit, like I say, starts to come out on trees like the jackalberries, we'll see them more in the fields. But they are around the place. They doesn't have a particularly high population, but they're definitely around, and I don't think they're in any sort of danger from a species point of view. And then you want to know, are they going to reintroduce the Simango monkey to this area? Christy, the Simango monkey has never occurred in the forested areas. They like to live in forest. They don't like this sort of woodland, dry savanna and woodland area. So the Simango monkeys occur just off towards the Drakensberg Mountains and the forests there, in Natal, and into the sort of thicker coastal vegetation that occurs down the east coast of KwaZulu-Natal. That's where the Simangos come. And those are the only two monkey species that we have here. Then there, of course, is the Chakma baboon. Now, I'm very interested by the fact that we don't see lots of baboons here, Christy. I don't know why that is. Certainly at Londolozi, just down the way. Sorry? Liam was making a joke, although I missed. The baboons certainly occur in great profusion at Londolozi or Singita and Malamara along the river. So I suspect that's got to do quite a lot with the river. I'm not sure why we don't see more of them here, but I suspect it's just not optimum habitat for them in this particular area. And we had another question earlier on while we were looking at the elephants, and I didn't get to it, about animal reintroductions, and do I know of any successful animal reintroductions and rehabilitations, certainly in this area or any other area. And you know, there are very few and far between successful stories of wild animals that have been injured or raised by human beings and then successfully reintroduced into the wild around here. Certainly the cats tend to have the worst time of it. I've seen films made about reintroductions where the endings have to be made up because the cats almost inevitably are killed by territorial wildcats. So that's a bit of a problem. And then in terms of something like an elephant, I suppose you could probably reintroduce an elephant, you know, because the herds are that much more accepting, and they'd probably take in an elephant. But a lot of the other animals tend to either get killed by their own kind because they don't understand how to react, or they don't know how to react with predators, and it really is a very difficult thing to try and reintroduce animals. That said, there are success stories. Rhino, for example, very wonderful success stories of reintroductions into Botswana by a truly remarkable company called Wilderness Safaris. And you hear of various other organizations who say, well, we've dropped 1 or 2 rhino in the last 5 years and aren't we doing a great job? Wilderness has introduced over 100 rhino to Chiefs Island in the last 10 years. They've done an incredible job, and those are very successful. So rhino tend to be reintroduced quite successfully. Obviously, huge areas have been recolonized by animals through reintroductions of specially captive bred animals, or animals that have been captured, say, from Kruger and put into them. Madikwe National Park is a very good example of that. That's a big national park in the northwest of the country, where there are now good, healthy populations of wild dogs and elephants and rhino and various other antelope species. So it can be done. But what often happens then is it's a relocation from an area like this to another wild area. A reintroduction of an injured animal that's been removed from the wild, or an animal that's been raised, tends to be a bit of a disaster almost universally. So that's unfortunately why we tend not to interfere as much as we can. I'm just going to hail Scott on the Game Drive radio, hoping that perhaps he's found something of great interest. Scott Dyson coming.
Jack, I just see that the traction coming along levels of cut camp from west of Aida Road and down to the north. So we're just trying to work out. Where do you know?
Yeah, you're breaking up quite badly. I'm just approaching Cheetah Cut Line. I haven't copied what tracks those are. Still talking to him, or trying to. Scott, can you go with what tracks those are?
The tracks are over the line.
Okay, copy, thanks. You did break up on the last direction. Where were they going? Tracks of the Nkuguma Pride.
We're heading east from west of Aida Road and off of the cut line before they went for a drink of the bar. Well, we're just trying to work on where they've gone.
Okay, copy that. I'll check the cut line here. Right, so they were heading east from a road just to the west there. And I did hear some mumblings of it, but I couldn't quite follow it earlier on. So let's keep an eye out for any tracks that might be crossing here. Nkuguma Pride we'd love to see. And Scott is obviously on foot there and in that Mahindra car, the other green car there, looking to see if there isn't any further evidence of the Nkuguma Pride around where he is. This is very exciting. Scott, is there anywhere particular you'd like me to check?
No, I'm not sure which road did you take from the down? Did you hit the bulls?
I took Hippo Bulls, yeah.
Maybe Boytown Road, anywhere in this area, so that would be good.
Okay, covered that. Alright, we are going to go up to the top here, turn around probably and come back towards Buffelshoek waterhole and see if we can't pick up further tracks of the Nkuguma Pride, which would be very good. I hope I haven't driven over the tracks while we've been live. I don't think I have, but it's not impossible. Scott, just to keep you posted, we did do Quarry Pan Road. There were some elephants there, but I didn't see anything on the road. That's not to say I didn't listen.
Okay, come on.
So we'll keep a very sharp eye out on the road now. Very important to make sure that we don't drive over the tracks, especially if there are people on foot trying to find them. I must say, I'd be fascinated to know who's left in this pride, what's going on. I know that the female that was with the Birmingham boys earlier on today yesterday is still with them, and whether she's still doing her flirting or not, I'm not sure. All rather exciting. So we'll take the fire break here. There's a fire break that goes down towards Buffelshoek waterhole. We'll take that and see if we can't pick anything up. Now, Vincent, this is a question that has come a few times. And Vince, you're sitting in Texas wondering about the fate of the Matimba lions and those two magnificent Salati lions that we had the other day. Now, for those of you perhaps new viewers, there's a great pride takeover going on in this area. The 5 young Birmingham boys are roughly sort of 4 years old are coming into this area now, 4 to 5 years old, trying to take over from 2 adults or 2 10-year-olds called the Matimbas. And they've chased them well to the south. And then the other day we had a group 2 or 2 more males, about probably 7 or 8 years old, called the Salati males, and they seem to be marking territory here, probably due to a power vacuum. And Vince, you want to know, would they ever join up with the Matimbas to challenge the Birmingham boys as they come in marauding through Djuma. No, Vince, I think the chances of that are negligible to zero, and the reason for that is that they are competitors. They're not related to each other. Coalitions of male lions either form when the lions are young nomads on their own, or when they're in the pride themselves, and they often leave with their brothers and cousins, and that's how the coalitions form. And that's certainly what happened with the Birmingham boys. Once they've become territorial males, it's highly, highly unlikely that they will ever start or form up or create another coalition with some territorial males that have been kicked out of an area. So I think it's highly unlikely. So just as we're getting into this discussion on the territoriality and looking for some further evidence of lions, Charlotte in Port Elizabeth, which is in South Africa, just near where my parents live actually, Charlotte. You can wave off to the east of where you are, towards Kenton, where my parents live. And Charlotte, you want to know if the Birmingham boys come from the same pride. They do seem to come from the same pride, on a farm called Birmingham in the Timbavati next to Ngala, where I used to work. Please excuse this rather rocky road, and if you hear a thump, it's VM falling out of the car. Charlotte, they do seem to come from the same pride. Now, what that means is that, and one of them is definitely slightly older than the other four. What that means is that they're not necessarily brothers, but they're most likely cousins, or even cousins or siblings, but maybe from different litters. So they could be no, they couldn't be from the different litters, I don't think, from the same mother, because their ages are too close. So they would either be from different mothers, so they're cousins, or they could be brothers. Certainly 2 or 3 of them could be from the same litter. Some kudu up ahead, never the healthiest sign when you're looking for lions. We'll drive down here now, back towards Bethesda. See if we can't pick something up. I'm not going to stop here for the kudu. We don't have a huge amount of time left, and I do want to just try and help try and find these lions, if you don't mind. That we don't drive over any of the tracks. So if our signal does become a little dodgy here, and it might, please forgive us. We are, as we head towards Bethesda Waterhole, there does seem to be a little bit of an issue with the signal. It'll probably be okay. Jamie is currently off in the east looking for leopard tracks. She is searching fervently for young Madiba, and we're hoping quite desperately that soon we'll be able to see him again after his experience with the dog. And I'm sure it probably did disturb him slightly to have the experience of being chased out of the tree, which had to happen. But I don't think it's going to affect his his confiding nature around us. And then just keeping along the theme of the lions and the coalitions and how they form and how they don't. Remember, there are no hard and fast rules in this game, and the more we make definite assertions about things, the more we tend to end up with omelette on our faces. And John in California, your question is, do I think Junior would have a better chance of joining the Birmingham Boys coalition if he was not with the Pride? So if he was a nomad? John, possibly. I truly don't believe that would join the coalition because it's so strong already. He's a bit younger than they are, and you know they've all come from a pride, and 5 is quite a lot anyway. So I think the chances of them accepting a totally strange male are slim to negligible. Again, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. Nothing is impossible out here. So would the Salatis and Matimbas join up? Again, I'd say it's even more impossible than Junior joining the Birminghams, but I'd say both are highly unlikely. Are they totally impossible? No, I don't think they're totally impossible at all. The most likely scenario for Junior is that he would go off on his own and find some other nomads who aren't yet in the throes of trying to take over a territory. If he doesn't do that, he's going to either have to become the biggest lion in the history of the Sabi Sands if he wants to take over a territory, or he's going to have to disappear and live as a nomad a long time and try and find another nomad that is the same. And that's certainly not unheard of. Lions do form coalitions with each other, but at the moment there seem to be so many coalitions around here that I don't think he's going to join an already existing successful one. But, so there are 2 males called the, I've got to get this right now, there are 2 males called the Sparta, not the Sparta males, the Styx males, who are just a little bit older than Junior is. They're about 4 years older. They don't seem to be trying to take a territory yet. They're knocking about here. They come from the Styx pride, sons of the Matimbas, so they are actually related to Junior. Now the chances of him forming a coalition with them, I would say, are much higher than were he to form a than the chances of him forming a coalition, say, with the Birminghams. So we haven't found any further tracks around here, of course. Scott and Steph and Jean Ray are around here trying to find the tracks. I certainly didn't see any on the road there. Here is the inimitable tracking team. So let's have just a quick chat with them and we'll see where they would like us to go and follow up. Here comes Scott now.
Hello. Hello, good morning.
How are you?
Very good, how are you?
All right.
Good. Morning everyone, again.
There we go.
Olivia.
Yeah.
What's up?
So we have done the cut line
Yeah.
to where you saw us turn around on Cheetah cut line there and said, well, no tracks coming out there. So we're not sure. It looks like their tracks could be heading back in the direction they came from.
Leaving
To be sure.
this
So we're just going to fish around here and make sure they haven't done this right, and then take it from there.
Okay, we'll do Gwaripan Road again and just stay out of your way, but I wasn't watching the road carefully along the Hippo Pools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So maybe, what do you want to do, Hippo Pools?
I'm just going to walk here quickly just to make sure the ground's so hard at the moment that it's really tricky to see tracks unless they're in a very soft spot. So I just want to double check here and then...
I'll do Gwaripan again and then reassess from there.
Okay, very good. Good luck.
All right.
See you later.
There we go. Right, here we go. Now, here we will have a brief look at Jean-Dre. That's what he looks like. You don't often see him. Behind him, of course, is the great Professor. Good morning, Professor. Are you having a splendid morning? Good, good. And somewhere around here is Steph. Steph's a bit like a ninja. He could be within centimeters of us and we wouldn't know. So we just if we do lose signal, it's because we're going to a slightly dodgy area, but we should be okay. I'm just going to really carefully for any signs of the Nkakuma pride, what is left of it. Alright, while we do this, might become a little boring, the signals are We're going to head across to Jamie. She's back on the vehicle. She'll give you an update, and I'll chat to you a little bit later, hopefully with some good news.
Welcome back. And I went for a long walk through the drainage line to see if I could follow up on where I had who I suspect to be, or what I suspect to be, Shadow's tracks. Now, the one thing I haven't seen anywhere in this area is any sign of Madiba. I haven't seen his tracks while I've been looping around. And of course, it could be that he's been resting up in this block for quite a while, so his tracks coming in might have disappeared in the interim. I've been listening for alarm calls, I've been driving loops, and I took a long walk from Termite Mound to Termite Mound and then into the drainage line that's off to my right. What I'm relying on now is alarm calls. I'm hoping that if they are on the move, that something will alert us to their presence. It is painstaking, but it is totally worth the effort. You've got to put in the work if you want the sightings. Now, I'm sure that she's in here somewhere. Her tracks haven't come out onto this road. Don't look like they've come out on Buffelshoek. It's just a matter of working out exactly where she's been hiding. Unfortunately, a drainage line as well as a guari thicket make lots of nice hiding places for sneaky leopards. Now, Ellen sent through a very interesting update, and thank you for that, Ellen. And Ellen, I know, keeps very much on top of the leopards that are around us. She is an expert at knowing who is who and where. Now, Ellen tells me that the Nkora Rangers put up an update that they saw Madiba yesterday, but without specifying a location. And then surely they would have alerted the Sabi Sands. And that is a very good chance that they did, which might explain the lack of tracks in this area. This is where James said he had the last tracks, was around Gowrie Gate. But if the Nkora Rangers did see him, then that might explain things. I haven't heard any updates on the radio, and I didn't yesterday, but I will be in contact with them. So thank you, genuinely thank you for that, Ellen. It's good to have an update, then at least I know what kind of situation I'm dealing with. Maybe we can get hold of them and see if the guys have managed to dart him and give him the vaccine he needs. Obviously, in these situations, time is a little bit of the essence. We want to get it to him as soon as possible. Since we haven't heard anything or requests for help, maybe it could be that he has got it, which is wonderful news for him. I must say that the news from the Nkora Rangers has taken some of the tension away from me, but Sharon, you were wondering what would happen if we didn't find Madiba, and chances are absolutely nothing. The most likely scenario is that it's absolutely fine, and that the dog wasn't rabid, and he should be healthy and happy and in his element somewhere in the bush. But Sharon, don't stress. I think it sounds like he has been found. Either way, it was just entirely precautionary approach. A better safe than sorry situation. And although it is true that it's better to administer that vaccine as soon as possible, and then give him his booster shot 3 weeks after that, it takes some time. Even if the dog was rabid, it does take time for the virus to manifest itself and start showing symptoms. And at that point it's too late, but you've got a week or two that maybe you can play with. I'm not too worried. I think he's absolutely fine. I just want to see for myself, just to see how he's feeling after all of this drama that he accidentally caused. Shame, completely innocently. He obviously didn't mean to, but it happened. Try and get you a view of this impala. If I get any closer, he's going to stop what he's doing. And he was being highly entertaining. Where-ish? Oh, I think he's going to walk away. He was scratching his head on the tree. But he's finished now. He's obviously got whatever was causing the itch and disappeared off. Now let's continue our search. Where to go next? It's all quiet, there's no alarm calls. I've walked the drainage line, I've walked the block. Can still hear go away birds calling at the dam. Oh, awesome. Here she go. No, hold on, let's see. Here's my binoculars. They are. Very well spotted, Brian. And that distinctive flash of white tells us immediately that it's a fish eagle. We're not too far from Sydney's dam, and that's probably where he came from. But of course, being birds of prey, you could well be scouting for things other than fish. So although they do predominantly prey on things like catfish. Oh, awesome. That is such an archetype or typical African sound. I really, really love that call. I also find it completely impossible to imitate. I have tried. Now he's soaring on a hot air current, so a thermal current, just to reduce any energy that he has to expend staying in the air. But he could well be looking for prey other than fish. Something like rodents or snakes are also within their realm of possibilities. And they are big birds, they are big eagles. So they are capable of taking down fairly large prey. Even something like a scrub hare could potentially be a meal for a fish eagle if they got the angle right. I think he might be making his way back to the dam. It could be either one of the two that nests close to the Djuma dam, or it could be one somewhere from Sydney's dam. Really, really cool to see. They are territorial, so the mated pairs will defend the area that they are in. And their territory size will depend on the type of territory. So in terms of riverfront, which is perfect for them, that's where they will have the smallest territories because that's the most contested territorial area. Our kudus have found us again. Going to approach nice and slowly so that we don't spook them in any way. Need that little bit of momentum. It's awesome to see these two males together, both of whom are in their primes. And Gilly was updating me on some information that James has told viewers, that you can age the kudu by their horns. and that you look at the tips, and if they're upward and outward facing, then they are in their prime. If they are inward facing, then they are still a little bit younger. And that's certainly the case. You also look at the number of twirls that they have. So these two, Zeus and then the one with these slightly closer together horns, those will be easily over 5 years old. You can also start to look at the white tips that very mature kudu bulls start to get on the top of their horns. I'm going to shuffle forward a little bit because they are in thick bush. Now, it's difficult with kudu. You can't be completely bound by a set of rules in terms of aging them. So with Zeus's horns, as spread out as they are and the tips pointing right out, it doesn't necessarily mean he's past his prime in terms of age. I think he is right there. I drove past him when I was tracking earlier, and he is absolutely enormous, but he does seem to be really fit and healthy. So I'd say that it's not necessarily the case that if you have them right outward facing and pointing with the ivory tips, that they are past their prime. It's when you start to see them losing condition. Hello, beautiful. This one is slightly younger. Put it at maybe 4 or 5 years old. Definitely starting to develop a beautiful set of horns. Look how green it is. Nibbling on what I think from this angle looks like a brackthorn or a splendid thorn. It gets that very, very green color, and I swear I can see a difference in the color of the bush from yesterday to today. It's almost like the green has popped up overnight. I hate to distract us from the kudu, and I hope they don't stop doing it. If there were two impala, I could hear them clashing off to my left. They're play fighting, they're full of high spirits. Let's just see if they carry on doing it. There we go. All of the animals are in high spirits today. The kudu have been play fighting, the impala. I think they're happy that it's spring has sprung and that there's green and new shoots for them to eat. It must make such a nice change. Just imagine when you've got used to eating that dry brown stuff and struggling to get the nutrients, and all of a sudden there's this fresh green soft food for you to eat. It must be such a pleasure. I'm not sure necessarily if that's humanizing it a little bit too much, but I think it must be nice for them. A relief to know that the dry season is coming to a close. Here we go. Let me shift forward again. Now what does happen, although they have a very strict breeding season in Impala, so they will have their time when all of the females go into estrus. That's around May, end of May, beginning of June. So you can see if we can get a nice view. I'm hoping they're going to come towards us. They actually seem to be moving in this direction. Nope, it's not a good view. Let's try and get a little bit of a better view. I just wanted to discuss a little bit about the way that they work. And we are seeing a little bit of action, I've noticed, with the impala males. They're still causing trouble, making their grunting, rutting sounds. Let's see if we can get a bit closer. So they breed in May, that's their main breeding time. End of May, beginning of June is when the impala ewes come into estrus. And then after that, a month or two later, those ewes that didn't get pregnant will enter a second estrus cycle. So there'll be a short later rut for a week or two. And then what we're going to start seeing fairly soon is as the females, the pregnant females, as their hormones levels start to rise before they get to the point of giving birth, then you get what's known as a false rut. So the males get a little bit confused by all of the hormone scents flying around, and they start sort of battling with each other. Their testosterone levels go up a little bit. And that's just a false rut just before the Nyala ewes give birth. And that will be towards the end of November, although I've seen some rather large looking ladies already. There's none here, this is just a bachelor herd. Are in their own separate tribe. The antelopes are not divided into families, but they are divided into tribes. And the impala have their own. And the name of it has just gone out of my head. Desperately trying to think. It starts with an A. Somewhere in there. I honestly cannot remember. But that could well be, Thomas. I'd have to look into it more closely. But I do know of the pronghorn. And I believe it is famed for its endurance. Go away, bird is calling again. They don't sound terribly frantic. I'm just sitting listening, trying to work out if, and hoping that maybe it might be that leopard, that female leopard coming back out. I really suspect that it is Shadow, but again it's an assumption. But I'm going to loop back down that way and just see if that great go-away bird has spotted something that we haven't. Hopefully something with spots. Sorry Brian, you okay? Obviously there's been a lot of talk about young Madiba and the prospect of him being darted for that anti-rabies vaccine. I'm going to have to do this descent fairly carefully. Just to avoid hitting the tow hitch on our way down. Now Jennifer, you were wondering how they were planning to look after Madiba and protect him from other predators if he was groggy from a dart. Now in this particular case, the dart that he is getting isn't going to have any anesthetic in it at all. So they're not looking to put him under sedation in any way. All it is a vaccine, a dart that goes in and immediately plunges the vaccine as soon on impact, plunges the anti-rabies vaccine into the underneath the skin and then drops out. So it doesn't have any ill effects. He will get a fright, he will jump a bit, but it is for his own good. Here the go-away birds. They don't look terribly distressed though. That's what I've been hearing. But they've stopped calling, they've stopped alarm calling. Sharon was worried about what would happen if we don't find Madiba in time. But Georgianne in Illinois has shared that in the US you have 7 days to get the vaccine after exposure to rabies. And I'm sure it works in a very similar way here, that we have about a week to play with. But we will know by tomorrow, I would say, whether or not that dog has tested positive for rabies, and we will, of course, let you know as soon as we do. I'd love to also get hold of those in coral ranges and just find out exactly where it was that they saw this little leopard. The go-away birds are not sharing their secrets. They've gone quiet once again. And the temperature difference out here is astronomical. It's gone from, 12 degrees this morning. It's probably around 25, 26, possibly even higher in the sun. It's amazing how fast it starts to get warm at this time of year. And I really genuinely think that this is my favorite time of year to be in the bush. It's hard to pick a favorite, but I think for me this is the best time. It's green, but there's still not too much plant cover, so we can see deep into the bush. There's the prospect of babies, the birds are all coming back. It really is an awesome time to be out and about in this area. I hear that James has been tracking lions around Buffelshoek Dam, which is very, very interesting, and I'm sure you're wondering how he's getting on. So for now, let's head across to James, and I will catch up with you a little bit later.
3, 2, 1. Hello everybody, welcome to Wendy. Sorry about my saying 3, 2, 1. That's not a normal thing for somebody to say, of course, and it relates entirely to the fact that VM cannot hear the of Mickey Austin coming live, so I have to count him in as Mickey counts me in. It's all rather complicated and utterly irrelevant to your lives, so I'm sorry for telling you about it. Anyway, there it is. Now, what we're looking at is a white-backed vulture circling above a batalier. Now, were they to start diving for the floor, I would immediately assume that the Nkahuma Pride had murdered some hapless herbivore in the vicinity, but I think what they're doing, especially as the day just starts to heat up, around this sort of 8:30ish time, they will start to fly on the thermals, because the thermals will start to rise up, and that's what that vulture's doing. Isn't it beautiful the way it flies? A gentle, peaceful floating. And I tell you what, if you ever are in need of some peace, to lie in the midday in a place like Africa here where we are and watch those vultures flying high, 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 sometimes so high that just a tiny little spot, to watch that happen is the most, I find it tremendous soul food for myself. They're also, I don't know if you can hear it. You hear that?
Yeah.
That's an eagle calling. It could well be those bataliers actually calling at each other. I don't know if you heard that. Beautiful batalier. Now they will of course be calling at each other if that is them. I think it is. I'm going to just quickly play the song of the batalier on my bird application. wonderful technology these days. And while I do that, while I look for it, Asad, you want to know how do we keep a track of the birds that are endangered, and what do we do about it? Asad, there are various groups in South Africa that look after birds. BirdLife South Africa keeps track of them. There are lots of amateur ornithologists who make detailed notes on all the birds they see. The Bird Atlas Project, the Percy Fitzpatrick Institute at the University of Cape Town, and there are a number of other organizations that look after bird numbers and monitor them and do a lot of research into them. The Endangered Wildlife Trust, all of whom keep tabs on the birds that are endangered, and we know their numbers are going up and down because of the very detailed records that people keep. Right, now here's the Batelier call. No, my phone is on silent. Ooh. Okay, so it wasn't the Batelier calling. I actually initially thought it probably wasn't. I think it's two Wahlberg's eagles calling at each other, and I'll just quickly play that call once you've heard the Batelier. So the Batelier goes, Wah! Play it into the microphone for you. Oh, there's another call that it makes. And it wasn't either of those two calls, so we'll quickly go. Let's just quickly go back to just go to the Wahlbergs, because I think that it was a Wahlberg's eagle that we were hearing. I might be wrong. Here he is. That doesn't sound right either. So maybe it was those Bateliers. That latter one that we heard could well have been the Bateliers. I've got Nikki in my ear saying she thinks it was the Bateliers, and I think she's probably right. What do you think, Jan? Definitely wasn't this.
No, that sounds like Franklin.
Yes, it's not a Franklin though, Liam, it's a Wahlberg's eagle. Never mind, we'll just ignore Liam, please. Okay, so we're going to go with Batelier on that call. Shut up now, Wahlberg. Now, it would have been impossible to do that without a tape player and a lot of winding of tape and stretching, possibly quite a lot of swearing before you got anything like the sound that we just got quickly off the back end of a very average telephone. So technology really does help us in the wildlife sphere in so many ways. And I know people used to ask me as we were people used to ask me when I was guiding, why don't you just put a radio tracker in these animals and then you just drive to them? You don't need to worry about trying to track them or anything like that. You just put a subcutaneous chip in them, have a GPS screen on your car and drive to whatever you wanted to see. Technologically we could do that, I suppose, but it would make for rather I don't know, less than exciting, I think, and less authentic experience here in the wilds. And although the tracking can be tremendously frustrating at times, yes, absolutely, it's so exciting to not know what's coming around the corner, and the skill of tracking, of course, is a wonderful thing. Lovely question about the bird calling. We were listening to the Bateliers calling just now, and Diana, you would like to know, do we have a dawn chorus here that is very loud? Diana, absolutely we do. You say half an hour after dawn or during the dawn. It's probably a bit longer than that, you know. It's probably up to an hour of birds as soon as it gets light. Starts off with the sparrows, and then come the franklins, and then the robins and the crested barbets and a whole lot of other wonderful birds that sing away until the heat starts to build after about 7 o'clock. So yes, we do get a hugely loud and beautiful dawn chorus, especially after you know, after it's been rainy and miserable, and when the weather comes back and it's delightful like it was this morning, is often a very loud and gorgeous chorus that we get. And that will increase as we go towards the wet season, or the middle of the wet season. Such a wonderful time of year, this. Such an air of expectancy that fills the atmosphere. Beyond there is a nyala. Let us have a look at it. This is a nyala ewe or cow. They are the mass at which a cow becomes a ewe. It's one of these strange anomalies of English. So anything below that mass out here is known as a ewe, and anything above it is a cow. And anything nyala sized and below becomes, or you have a nyala bull, and anything smaller than a nyala bull is a ram. An interesting one from Assad, who's clearly had some experience with deer. Now, Assad, you would like to know if any of our antelope lose their horns. It's one of the characteristics of antelope that they do not lose their horns. They are permanent fixtures on an antelope's head, and if they do break off during a fight, or there's an abscess or something and they break off, they don't grow back. So it's a bit like an appendage, they don't grow back. So unlike a deer, which will grow antlers and lose them on a regular basis, that's not the same at all for the bull and ram antelope out here. Thanks for that, Assad. It's a good question, and one that we should probably mention a lot more than we do, because of course many of our viewers come from the Northern Hemisphere, where you do have deer species throughout, from all the way through North America into India, across the reaches of Northern Europe. There are deer species. We don't get any deer in Africa, though, but for those that have been introduced here. So there are populations of fallow deer that occur around the place. Definitely not in a place like the Kruger Park. They would be removed forthwith should they ever arrive here. Certainly where my father lives, my parents live near Port Elizabeth, where we had a question today. There's a golf course nearby at a little place called Port Alfred, and on that golf course they have a huge plethora of wonderful wildlife, but they do also have fallow deer, and they're quite common in the Eastern Cape on some of the small sort of privately owned game reserves. But they're introduced from Europe. The heat is now starting to build, and I think it's going to be a pretty hot day. Sorry about that. Now, as we close off with some beautiful elephants, well, I think they were beautiful buffalo. Liam is just rolling his eyes heavenward as I use the term beautiful prefix or prefix the word buffalo with beautiful.
I never dispute their beauty. It's their level of activity.
Okay. The level of activity, that's the problem. Thank you for clearing that up, Liam. Laura, you want to know if I've been to the pump house to check out the sausage tree. Now, for those of you who don't know, I was asked if we got sausage trees the other day by a viewer in this area. I categorically said we do not get sausage trees in this area. We had various people from Finland, Raisa I think it was, and Jeffrey from Texas, who then came up and said, well, no, you do get them there, and they pointed out two specific spots where they know that sausage trees exist. They have not been here, and yet they knew where the sausage trees were. Laura, I then did go to the pump house. I actually can't find the sausage tree. I found one that could be a sausage tree, but it doesn't have any leaves on it yet. So I'm waiting for them to come. I'm very sure that it is the sausage tree, so I have seen it, but it doesn't have its beautiful red flowers yet, or any of its nice long red leaves, and certainly none of its slightly none of its fruit pods that have given it some of its traditional uses. And so on that note, I'm going to bid you a fond farewell with a word of thanks to Viam, who has now taken off his winter woolies and is now dressed very bush chic in his bush shirt and bush pants and boots. I suppose they're more sort of mining boots than they are bush boots, and a hat, like I say, older than Methuselah. And a big thank you to Nikki and Jessica in the final control, who have been operating the dials and twiddling the knobs. Thank you to Eugene in his tin hat somewhere below the Gowrie repeater, and a big thank you to young Jamie, and Brian is filming her, the enormous Brian Joubert. On that note, we will see you this afternoon, probably in a very hot state, and hopefully with some luck with the lions. Bye bye, keep safe and keep happy wherever you are. See you later.
So, welcome back, and an exciting morning it has been with those incredible kudu, but I'm still desperate to find out exactly what's happening with young Madiba, so I will be following up on him this afternoon just to see if we can get an update on how he's doing. And I know that all of you as the viewers are also keen to see and hear from him, or hear about him, and if he's feeling healthy and if he's recovered from his ordeal with the dog. Now, I'd just like to say a big thank you as well from Scotty, and I think it was Jandre on camera with him this morning. So Scott and Jandre and Steph, who were out on bushwalk. It's great that we've been able to get these bushwalks up and running. It's very, very exciting. And a big thank you to Brian for all of his hard work. Now, Nikki and Jess in FC, a thank you to you, and Eugene for all of his incredibly hard work. And last but not least, a huge thank you to you, the viewers. We will catch up with you on the Sunset Safari. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, and see you a little bit later.